Okay, so we need to do a little housekeeping. So open up your urls.py. You'll notice if you run server, you're going to get an error here. And that's because our regular expression, this right here, is actually incorrect. We're just missing the P here on both of them. And that's all you need to do. Regular expressions are relatively of a complicated discussion, so we're going to kind of leave that out for another time. If you do have questions, I can steer you in the right direction of how to learn how all these things work exactly. All right, so that's that. And now what we want to do is actually start getting our project going. If we refresh here, we'll notice that we do have our page error, page not found. And that's okay, but we want to get somewhere where we have our home base. So let's just copy this down here. And we will put the $sign. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually name it under geolocator.views. That is where our home is now going to reside. So we need to actually create the view for that. So within this settings file, we're going to make a new file here called views.py. And we're going to do some imports here from Django.shortcuts, import render to response, request context, and then we'll do def home equals to request. And we're just going to do return render to response, and then a template, we'll just call it home.html. And then we'll do locals and request, or excuse me, context instance equals to request context, and it's going to take in the request. Save that, and we'll go back into Chrome. Geolocator.views could not find, oops, locator.views.home. Of course, you want to make sure that you declare what view is going to hold it. So we don't have the template. So let's create a few templates here. I'm not going to implement Twitter Bootstrap quite yet, so it's okay if we leave that out. We're going to do base.html, and then we're going to do a new file for home.html. And we're going to make it real simple here. Doc type HTML, and then HTML, and then body block content. So again, this is basic HTML stuff. If you already know how to implement Twitter Bootstrap, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm just going to skip that for now. And then extends base.html, block content, welcome home. Okay, save it, refresh. Oops, gotta make sure I type things correctly. And this is a good reason as to why you'd want to test constantly. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a form here, and the method will be post, and action is going to go to the same page, and let's not forget our CSRF token. Input type, we're going to do text. And name equals search. And input type submit, value equals submit. We'll do a refresh, some info, hit submit, nothing's going to happen. So let's go back into our views, and we'll do if request.method, method equals to post, print request.post. Go back into Chrome, do a refresh. We can even hit continue, look into our terminal, and we notice our post information here for search. Cool, so we're going to actually use that data. So query equals request.post search. We're going to use this data to actually search our algorithms that we've already created for Locu and Foursquare. So like, restaurant. It's going to search restaurant, right? So we'll see that there. Now we want this to actually work. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up a Locu. That's going to be the first one we're going to work in. So open that up. Open it up in Komodo Edit, of course. And then within geolocator, we're going to make a new file here, and we're going to call it, we'll just call it functions.py. Okay, so let's open that, and let's actually just copy part of this top part here. We're just going to copy that, put it into functions. Okay, so then in view, from functions, import, and now we have to actually put some type of function together. So what we'll do is below it, we'll do Locu Search, and it's going to take in a query. And we want to set, we can leave it to where we're setting our URL up here as well as our API. But underneath, we're going to want to take all this stuff and just change a few things out here. So tab that in, make sure they're all tabbed in 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that way they're within the function. And what we're going to want to do is local here, instead of it being Newport Beach, we're going to change it to the query, and that's that. Alright, so what we should expect then is if we import this, we should see all the names, or some of the names at least, of like locations near whatever we put in this query. So we'll copy the name of it because we need to import it. And we'll import it there, and then we'll just run it. Locu Search, and we'll put query. So if we look back on our function, what we'll only see is it's going to print out the names within our terminal. Okay, so if we go back into home and we do a quick search for a location, so I'm going to do Newport Beach. And it searched, it did some loading up there, and if we go back into our terminal, it shows all of that information. Awesome. So what we could also do then is just do return. Well, we actually want to turn this into a list, so let's change this to locations equals to an empty list, and then we're going to append each item of the list. Right, so we need to do locations dot append, and it's going to do it each time. It's going to add a new name to that locations list. So let's do return locations. So it's going to return that list now. Instead of printing it, it's going to actually return that list. So in here, and we can actually close out locu.py. And just so you know, if you did notice this, I have this import here. That's only just for my own custom APIs. You can just explicitly write your API here, similar to like what we had before. This is only for, so you don't have my API. It's just for security and stuff like that. You don't have to have these lines just like that. You can have your API here, whatever it is, in there. Okay. So going back into the views, now that this is returning stuff, we'll say locations equals to that. So if we just do a quick print of locations, and we go back in here, and we type out Newport Beach again, submit it, it's going to print out a list now. That's exactly what we wanted, which is perfect. So into our home file, we'll do if locations. So if there's something called locations, it's going to return a list. So we'll do an unordered list, a UL, and then we'll do for location in locations. Do list item, and then we'll do location. Save that, go back in here, and do a quick refresh. Newport Beach, submit. There we go. Now we have a nice list of locations. Cool. So if we try something else like Irvine, it's going to have a different list. You guys can try all the things you want. And let's try London. Cool, right? It's like got a nice little variety of places that you can actually search. And you know what we could even do is we can put the query right here saying you searched for, and we'll say Newport Beach. Look at that. Cool. It's a very basic little search thing, and it's working through our function here. So it's actually opening their information and it's bringing it back to us. That's all that's happening there. So in the next one, we will actually do the same thing, but with a Foursquare search. All right. See you then.